Good morning, America. Oh, we're here. So, like I said, Dow 18K, right? And according to the futures, as of 7:05, we are basically there. Dow 18.5K. And so, let's look at the weekly. It's easier on the weekly chart. So, looking at the weekly chart, uh, we're gonna hit 18K more than likely, if not today. Um, it'll be sometime this week, and I am tossing out my revision. We will hit 16K as America starts to look more like Italy. As you can see, we're playing catch up now that we're testing a little bit more. You see, we ballooned up to almost 8,500 detected cases. And again, these are not new cases. When you see the numbers go up, these are not new cases. These are detected cases. For those who are here the first time, so like I said, I've been investing for a very long time. I work as a nurse, but I've been investing, even if it is just a small bit of money. I learned to invest a long time ago. I was a day trader for 8 years. When I was 22, I'm 40 now, and I've day traded and swing traded and invested for the past 18 years or so. And so it's from the medical standpoint that I was always making, I guess my quote unquote predictions, where I saw inefficiencies in decisions that were made. And I was paying attention to this when it was going on in China, and many people, even in the medical community, were like, it's just a flu, stop over exaggerating, it's not really that bad. And I just keep on watching, and I looked at it from the medical investor standpoint, that if a country as big as China, especially economically, if they were willing to shut down huge portions of their country, and halt, in essence, their economy, that was a big deal. That was a big deal, economically speaking. But then I looked at it from the standpoint, if they were willing to do that economically, then the medical severity, the health severity must have been even bigger than what they were leading. And so that's why I had been saying for the past couple of weeks that the market was going, back when we were at 27K, back before we plunged below 27K, I was saying the market is going to hit 18K. People were like, what fantasy world are you living in? And so here we are, right? Here we are. Dow futures hit their limit on the downside overnight in the futures market. More than likely, we will see that during the daytime. And as we look more and more like Italy with the type of deaths, on the unit that I work in, 1/3 of all the nurses have fallen ill. And if there are no nurses, who will be there to care for you? The problem will go from bad to worse. And from a medical standpoint, we are not even at the point where we're being overwhelmed. Italy's far, far more prepared than the United States is. At least I live here in New York, and I can tell you, when I look at the nurses and when I look at the medical staff in Italy, and I've seen how well they're protected in terms of the personal protective equipment, the PPE that they wear, right? They wear that kind of like that hazmat suit with something to protect their head, a visor, an N95 mask, etc. Stuff, even on their feet. We're not walking out like that. We're walking out with paper gowns, and maybe a face shield, right, for someone who is droplet, because of the lack of PPE within the country. So the CDC downgraded their recommendation from utilization of airborne precautions to utilization of droplet precautions, and it was not medically based. It was not scientifically sound why they made that decision. That decision was made because of the lack of personal protective equipment, to the point where the CDC, when I was there Thursday, when I was at the hospital, and I read the CDC's recommendation that even if there are no masks, you can try utilizing a scarf or a handkerchief, right? That's where we were at as of last week. And so just looking, like, we're literally on we're at the starting gate, right? We're just lining up, right? We're literally just lining up. The guy's ready to shoot the pistol for everybody to run out the gate. That's where we are in America. We're not in the throes of it. We're not in the middle of it. We're barely getting started. And if the market is already at 18K pre-market, we will more than likely see 16K. I think we'll probably see 12K at some point during this year. So that's why I have been recommending people, even at work, because people know that I invest. And the people are like, yeah, should I get in here? So I'm like, no, don't buy. Don't buy this market. You may need that money later on if you lose your job, which is what we're seeing now within the country, where a lot of people are getting let go because nobody's going to work. Nobody's going to work. No one's going to restaurants. No one's going to bars. No one's going to clubs. No one's going out shopping. You know, like people are literally just going out and buying food and then coming back home. Hopefully that's what they're doing. In New York, we're not seeing that. We're still seeing people congregating in large groups. I think the government has recommended no groups larger than 2 people. So we're basically they're basically recommending that you don't be around anybody. And even when I go out, I take my N95, with me when I go food shopping. Just because if I go down and I can't get to work because I'm sick, I won't be there to take care of patients. So I've made the decisions to be more cautious with my health, even though it does affect people of all ages. Excuse me, have you seen? So I'm trying to be more cautious with my own health so that I'm able to give care to people. As far as I had heard on my unit, 1/3 of all the nurses have already fallen sick. 1 nurse showed up to work yesterday for the day shift, and then management had to work the floors, and 2 nurses from overnight had to stay and work 24 hours, of course, with a longer than usual break. But if we're at that point now, I worry about where we will be once things actually get started, because of people choosing not to socially distance. We could see some very serious repercussions as a result of people disregarding. And of course, it stems from the top, from people just constantly thinking that it's just a flu. Like what's going to happen in the market over the coming weeks will pale in comparison to the after effects from an economic standpoint. Very, very worrisome. When you work in the medical field, especially if you're kind of a little bit more awake than my average, excuse me, than my average coworkers, even doctors. It's very scary to think about where we're going to be. If we're not going to impose some sort of military presence, the problem will just continue, as people will wait in America. People will wait till they start seeing bodies drop, and then they'll be more cautious, and then it will be too late. As you can see what's going on in Italy. Because in Italy was much more proactive than America has been. But like I said, let's take a look at the 5-minute. So the market bounced here, and this is primarily due to the government injecting liquidity into the market. So they've said that they were going to be buying securities. They were buying like mortgage-backed securities. I think they are the largest holder at this time. The federal government is like the largest holder of real estate at this time. But you can see that the market kind of double bottomed here, what looks like around 19K, and then we subsequently retested it. We've gapped down. Get a little more. Let's get the 15. We've currently, I can't even see it on the 15. Let's get the daily. We've currently gapped down to 18.5, which is just kind of the top of the 2015, 2016, 2017. So you can see this is like a multi-year resistance. And unfortunately, because of fear within the market, like support levels are not as sturdy as they should be. I've been watching where the markets are actually gapping through supports and then retesting those supports on the way up. So instead of holding 22K, we gapped down below 22K, and then the market rallied above to 22K and then sold off. Actually, we didn't even hit 22K. It was like 21.7, and then the market sold off. So we're not even like holding supports. We're gapping through them, and then we're testing them on the way up, which is it kind of lets me know that there's so much selling going on and there's no buyers. And I had posted this in a video before about beware buying in this market, and you kind of get the floor pulled out from underneath you, which is what's happening. So people are buying, and then the floor is being pulled out, and then we're seeing the huge plunge on the way down. So I would definitely say to look for 18K. We're already there. Look for 16K within maybe the coming week, maybe this week or next. Especially as we start to hear of people dying, which will happen when. And another thing to keep into consideration from the medical standpoint is we're not China, right? The people are not as fearful of the government. Two, we're not Italy, where the people are more unified for one another. I have watched many videos coming out of Italy, and you hear the nurses and the doctors talking about we're here for the people of Italy, and some may be like that in the U.S., but I would say that is not the norm. It is definitely not the trend. Just from what I've heard, I really want to stress for people to stay inside. Because a nurse like me, if you don't, might not be able to even to give enough care to you in a hospital setting, because I have too many patients to look after. One patient may go into distress, and I may end up with that person for 2 or 3 hours with minimal time to tend to other patients, because I work on a step down, so we're the ICU overflow. And when an ICU patient can't be moved up, well, I become your new ICU nurse, even though you remain on step down. The orders don't change. Very important to understand, especially in a pandemic where we're short. Doctors will just put in orders. Protocols will kind of go out the window, and I become your new step down / ICU nurse. So I would really say to make sure that you're practicing social distancing. Stay home if you can. Wash your hands frequently, and of course, when you come out from the outside world, be sure to change your clothing. Put that in a separate bag, and if possible, wash them immediately so that you don't end up with a buildup, because you'll come in contact with different sorts of people. You never know what some people have touched. You never know what you accidentally brush up against. So it's good to kind of keep that clothing separate, and if possible, wash them immediately so that soiled clothing doesn't remain in your home. With that said, like I said, I would wait till after kind of this is all over, as the market will continue to fall. For people that are like, I know there's quite a few YouTubers who were made dividend cash accounts that were like growing a dividend account, etc. Be careful in following their advice, as many of them are very unaware of what's going on, and especially medically. I look at it from the medical investor standpoint. As long as we have this health crisis going on, the markets will continue to plunge, especially because of what we're seeing with the lack of leadership. And it's a systemic problem. It's not just like people talking about the president. It's like trickling down. We're really seeing who are the leaders in the time of a crisis. In any event, this video is getting a little bit longer than I wanted to. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Like I said, practice good hand hygiene, and of course, if possible, use some form of way to cover your mouth, your nose, as well as your eyes, because the virus can also get into your eyes, because we have pores at the end of our nose, so the virus will look for a way to gain entry. And of course, the biggest way, of course, is via hand hygiene. If possible, try to cook the vast majority of your food, and of course, if you eat things that are uncooked, try to limit those to things that have a skin so that they can be washed, so that you can wash the outer layer with soap, because water alone will not remove the virus. It needs to be broken down. The oils need to be broken down, and that will only happen with either alcohol or with soap. Obviously, you're not going to put alcohol on your food, but you can use simple soap to kind of scrub the outside before you cut into it. And of course, make sure that you are cleaning everything before, going from meat and etc. to vegetables. In any event, I'm getting ready. I've got work tonight. We'll see how many people show up. That's something I am worried about. I'm going to see how many nurses are going to be there. Like I said, on the day shift, one nurse showed up on step down. One.